it's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious, and then you come back,
you're just going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
Comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
So it's like a big part of it is speed. Anthony Joshua has that kind of speed.
Joe Rogan shared his thoughts on Jake Paul's hospitalization following the knockout loss to Anthony Joshua during a conversation with Daniel Cormier. He highlighted how devastating the strike appeared and reminded viewers just how brutal professional boxing can be. Rogan explained that when an athlete absorbs a clean shot at that level, the effects aren't always short-term. He added that fights can turn in an instant and that heavy blows like this can cause lasting harm that fighters may carry with them long after their careers end.
He was done.
He outboxed him for the rest of the round.
How? But again, in MMA, fight probably would have been over, and he would have took less damage.
Right, but isn't that a better art?
Sports physician Brian Sutter analyzed the aftermath of the knockout using a clinical and level-headed approach. He noted that the fight result itself wasn't surprising to many, but concern grew when Jake Paul said he thought his jaw might be broken. Sutter explained that a jaw fracture was certainly possible, given how cleanly Anthony Joshua's right hand connected with the left side of Jake's face. However, he emphasized that head trauma would be the more serious issue. He pointed out that facial fractures often become secondary when doctors are assessing higher-risk problems involving the brain, neck, or airway. The force of the punch caused Jake's head to rotate violently, sending stress through the brain and brain stem, which raises the likelihood of a concussion. Even though Jake was not fully unconscious, Sutter warned that symptoms can appear later. Jake's immediate reaction and visible shock suggested he quickly realized the severity of the impact.
All expected. After the fight, though, Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that Anthony Joshua delivers, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up close near.
Joe Rogan had shared concerns even before the fight took place, suggesting the matchup was likely to go badly for Jake Paul. He pointed out that Jake had mostly competed against aging or long inactive opponents, but this bout was completely different. This time, Jake was facing an elite heavyweight still operating at the highest level of the sport. Rogan warned that the gap in experience and power would be severe, and that mistakes at that level don't come with mercy.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him.
Jake Paul's decision to face Anthony Joshua triggered intense discussion throughout the boxing community. While some fans applauded Jake for stepping into a risky matchup, many experienced analysts strongly disagreed with that praise. Luke Thomas was among the most vocal critics, arguing that the reaction to the fight was blown far out of proportion. He suggested that Jake was being celebrated simply for lasting in the ring, not for truly competing. Thomas noted that Joshua appeared restrained, choosing not to apply full pressure and holding back on several exchanges. In his view, the bout lacked genuine competitiveness and felt more like a managed scenario than a true contest. Thomas added that Jake's showing didn't reflect technical improvement or strategic awareness. Instead, he felt Jake looked outmatched, struggled to assert himself, and never showed clear intent or ability to take control of the fight.
The Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, wow, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his...
Lawrence Owaki looked at the situation from another angle, but reached a similar critical conclusion, focusing on how unforgiving boxing truly is. He explained that one mistake can end a fight instantly, no matter the fighter's fame or preparation. From his perspective, Jake Paul stepping in with someone like Anthony Joshua was an unnecessary risk. He stressed that mismatches don't become acceptable just because they attract attention, and described the decision as avoidable and poorly judged, noting how much worse the outcome could have been. Despite the criticism, a few commentators acknowledged Jake's willingness to take punishment and continue. After the fight, reports said Jake was hospitalized with a serious jaw injury, which some saw as a sign of toughness. Their praise centered on resilience rather than skill. Even then, that credit stopped short of labeling Jake a legitimate professional boxer. The narrative framed his effort as bravery, not ability. While enduring damage earns respect in boxing, it isn't enough on its own. Courage without competitiveness doesn't change a fighter's standing, and Jake's injury only reinforced concerns about whether fights like this should happen at all.
He broke his jaw. We all know, we've seen the x-ray. There is a video of the x-ray that he showed us on his Instagram, so that was no AI. And it showed where where his jaw had to be reconstructed and, wired, right? So he can't have any hard foods for a while. And again, I think Jake Paul is going to get respect for that, because it's one thing, because we all know about Jake. I think the problem with Jake was he was bullshitting us by giving us fights that we didn't want to see, for one, and for two, wasn't giving us fights most of the time of the people that could beat him. You know, he gave us Tommy Fury, and then Tommy Fury actually beat him, which, you know, whatever. But he did drop Tommy Fury with a left hook, so that was an impressive thing he did against the guy. Can't say the only guy now, because AJ fought him and knocked him out. But, you know, other than that, though, fighting Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva, which Anderson Silva showed that he is still very dangerous and very, very ready at 50 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what he did to Tyron Woodley was classic Anderson Silva. You know, he picked his shots. You know what I mean? He moved with grace. He moved with wisdom, and he knew exactly what to do. And again, he should have went over to boxing a long time ago, but Jake beat him. So that just made Jake's, you know, stock rise, right? In the sense of, hey, well, he beat Anderson Silva.
Adam Cattrall offered one of the harshest evaluations of the situation, taking direct aim at how popularity now shapes modern boxing. He argued that Jake Paul is a clear result of that imbalance, pointing out that Anthony Joshua didn't appear to throw his punches at full force and still inflicted serious damage. To Cattrall, this exposed the enormous skill and power gap between them, adding that the consequences could have been far worse if Joshua had fully committed. His broader criticism focused on the direction of the sport itself, claiming boxing is increasingly rewarding fame instead of merit. He noted that fighters who dedicate years to climbing the rankings often struggle for opportunities, while online personalities receive high-profile chances without earning them in the ring. From his perspective, this fight represented everything wrong with that shift, and Jake Paul's involvement wasn't impressive but rather proof of a system that values attention over competitive integrity.
For my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch, it's his most powerful punch, right? Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding inside of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his...
Yeah, it's a professional boxing.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. Well, yeah. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And I found it... I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
But I think when I was reading, he got 5 points.
True Geordie delivered a more balanced but still critical response, acknowledging that Jake Paul's personal journey and rise through entertainment were compelling on a human level, with discipline and ambition that some could find inspiring. However, when it came to the fight itself, he made it clear that Jake didn't perform to that standard. Geordie observed that Jake didn't look like a fighter intent on winning, noting hesitant movement, limited offensive commitment, and a ring presence focused more on surviving than competing. He stressed that boxing isn't evaluated on backstories or intentions, but on what happens between the ropes. While Jake's path may resonate with some fans, the actual performance left no lasting sporting impression, and the broken jaw ultimately became a symbol not of courage, but of the predictable result when clear skill gaps are overlooked.
Because on the one hand, Jake's come a long way, so you want to give him credit for that. But on the other hand, you want to get in there with AJ. You want to talk about you're going to beat AJ up and then you fight in a certain way. It's very hard for me to kind of give the right amount of credit and criticism here because the backstory is so inspiring, but the performance was not inspiring in some ways. I think for me now, I just want to see Jake Paul in a fucking competitive fight. And that's the problem with the direction he's been going in, is he puts on big fights, but not competitive fights. Fighting Chavez Jr., that was an easy win. Nate Diaz, an easy win. Mike Tyson, an easy win. Anthony Joshua, not competitive for the opposite reason. He's completely not expected to win, and it wasn't competitive. He stacks the chips too heavily either way, and because of that, we never actually get to find out how good Jake is. And part of that, I think, is maybe deliberate, because then we never know, and the storyline can go anywhere. And while you don't know really how good he is, there's always another dream to sell, and it's almost genius level promoting. It really is. But for his own sake, you're getting into your late 20s now, your physical prime, you're only going to ever find out how good you really are by getting in there with people who are of the level that you claim you're at the right weight class. You are not a cruiserweight. You've got a layer of body fat on you. You can't be doing that in boxing. If you're a serious boxer, you don't get in there looking like Jake Paul looks. You look shredded, and that's why really he's a light heavyweight. But fuck it, if you want to be cruiserweight, be a cruiserweight. Regardless, just fight people who are now ranked, and let's find out where the fuck he is. Because surely these money grab Tyson fight, the AJ fight, he's packed that bank chock full, and credit to him. Even if he has hustled people or whatever the fuck, credit to him. One of the best promoters in boxing history, actually. I really do believe that, because even when fights see him...
Pauli Malignaggi emerged as one of the most severe critics, speaking from the perspective of a former world champion with strict expectations for professional boxing. He rejected the fight outright, labeling it uncompetitive and lacking seriousness. In his view, Jake Paul showed little intention of winning and instead appeared focused on staying upright for as long as possible. Malignaggi took issue with Jake repeatedly dropping to one knee and treating the event like a performance rather than a genuine contest. His criticism was rooted in respect for the sport, arguing that boxing careers are built through years of sacrifice, discipline, and hardship. Seeing someone enter under vastly different circumstances and receive praise for merely enduring felt, to him, disrespectful to fighters who devote their lives to the craft. From his standpoint, the bout failed to contribute anything meaningful to boxing.
Guy just ran for his life. I just watched Jake Paul run for his life for 5-6 rounds. Literally just run for. He was doing football jukes. You guys watched that fight? Ring was big. I made a freaking point about that ring being big, and he used it to his advantage in terms of survival in every way he could. I mean, this guy literally never tried to win a second of the fight. He was trying to throw a home run punch every once in a while. Then notice every time he got in the clinch, he just went down. He just hugged Anthony Joshua and then would go down, and the referee would call it a slip and give him a break, and he would just kill time that way. Then he was completely angling off. He was completely blading his shoulder off completely to the point where he's so bladed off that he can't even punch. He was just trying to make himself as small of a target as possible. Now Anthony Joshua, people are going to say, oh, why didn't Anthony Joshua catch up to him? Because Anthony Joshua never had fast feet to begin with, and Anthony Joshua honestly should have probably cut off the ring a little bit better. That's my one critique of Joshua. He probably could have cut off the ring a little bit better. Joshua's always never really had the best feet, but in terms of cutting off the ring, he could have at least done that. But honestly, what do you want the guy to do? I mean, this guy ran for his life in a 22 by 22 ring. That ring was huge. That ring was huge. I can't believe what I just watched, guys. I'm seriously dude. That's it. This was AJ's chance. Could have went out on his shield and his chance to say, yeah, get the respect of the boxing community. This was the one that could have got him the respect of the boxing community. This was the one. He came out with all this rap crap and doing the Hulkamania crap and all that other stuff and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, is he that calm, or is he literally just setting up his own demise? I don't know. AJ came out to the ring really serious, which would you expect? And then, I mean, he never fought. Jake never fought. He never fought the whole fight. And then in the end, what happened? You get stopped anyway. You took some shots anyway. His mouth was bleeding at the end of the fight.